This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
The clouds are starting to roll in over Djuma, and there could be some rain, but most of all, there could be a lot of excitement. I'm always excited for Drive. I hope that you are too, so why don't you join us, jump on board for your live safari and your live adventure through the African bush. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome aboard. I'm so happy to have you. Let's see for how long here in Djuma. We're expecting a bit of rain and some thunderstorms tonight. As you saw, those clouds are rolling in, but I like it. There's a lot of excitement in the air. Hi, everyone. It's me, Trishal, and I've got Johan on camera with me, and we are ready. We hope that you are too. So these big clouds are definitely the type of clouds that we expect for a storm to be coming in. And you can see it's kind of like a blanket. It's been pushing through to the north from the south. There's blue sky on that side, but along the rest towards the south, it is very, very ominous. Yes, there's that word, ominous, but I think that makes it exciting. Anyway, it's your live safari, everyone. So use that hashtag WildEarth to chat to us. You can also use @FC on the YouTube chat stream. And you can also go to our website and register and use our questions and comments box. And if you're under 18, one of our lovely kids, you can use kids' questions at wildearth.tv. We would love to hear from you all. So the plan for today is to go to Chitwa. And as soon as we hear the rumbles of the thunder and see the lightning and all of that, we'll head back. But I want to start off at Chitwa and spend a good amount of time. So we're going to start moving and head off in that direction, because it's a bit of a driveway, not terribly far, but definitely a bit of a drive. I love going to Chitwa because there's the big dam there. I've always had surprising leopard sightings there. You know, the ones that you don't expect, you just pop out of nowhere. In fact, not just leopard sightings, but great surprise sightings. There's been wild dogs and lion sightings that just kind of popped out of nowhere. So I want to go spend some time there. And with the big dam, I'm hoping that we'll also see some elephants having a bit of a swim. That would be great. Now, it's still very, very warm. It's about 33 degrees Celsius, 91 degrees Fahrenheit. So the temperature has to lower quite a bit to the dew point before we can expect some rain. So I'm hoping that that lasts for a while. Anyway, I've told you about the weather at Djuma, so why don't we go and have a look at what the weather at our other locations is like.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the other vehicle here on Djuma. And while we're looking at a tree that was struck by lightning about 3 years ago, and well, needless to say, the tree's dead. Hello, everybody. My name is Steve, joined by Paul on camera, and we are very excited to be out and about on Drive this afternoon. And we are going to focus on some small things. So the tree over there was struck by lightning in summer of 3 years ago. I can't remember if it was February or March. We had a lightning storm that hit very, very close to home. Noel was working here still at the time, and underneath this tree that got hit Noel later on found a deka that had this lightning bolt sort of scar across the side of its body. It had been charred to death. Well, struck by lightning, it probably killed it instantly. And I was asked yesterday if any animals eat animals that are struck by lightning, and well, that animal was definitely not there the next day. So I suppose there is some preference, but now with that tree being dead, it was a knobthorn. It now is open to all sorts of attack from insects, all sorts of attack from organisms, and it is a habitat tree until it falls over. Heard a bird calling just before. The black-collared barbet, as well as the crested barbet, as well as the woodpeckers, will find very nice homes inside these trees that insects are busy burrowing in and causing damage to, and they will cause the cavities, which then creates the wonderful nesting space for starling and a host of other species. So we'll be doing a little bit of a small talk discussion with a bigger picture, with a bit of a focus on ecology on this Sunday afternoon. I won't keep it or let it go too technical, everybody, but we'll just open up the discussion to some quite wide variety of how and why things occur here. Eric, well, the weather right now is doing what it's doing. It's got nothing to do necessarily with the season. Autumn changes and we start seeing shifts in the daylight time, the position of the sun, or angle of the sun on the earth is what causes a lot of the thunderstorms that we have, because the downward heat causes lots of convection currents, causes lots of sort of static electricity, and that causes lightning storms. But a lot of the storms we're seeing as well have got to do with a lot with the pressure systems off of the coast, and we're going through a very wet cycle at the moment, whereas before, last year was also quite wet, but the previous years before that were very dry. So it's the way the world moves. It's these El Niñas sort of stories. They're all in alignment, and what affects the west coast of America also affects the west coast and east coasts of southern Africa. So the coasts of the world, or the currents of the world, are hugely impacting on the weather of the land. Generally, cold currents going up in the southern hemisphere, going upwards from the South Pole, and the warm currents going downward, and that leads to sort of wet climates on the eastern side in South Africa and in America, I believe, and in America as well as South Africa, wet climates in the winter months. So we'll delve deep and we'll see where we go. But we're going to first of all send you over to Tswalu Kalahari.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to a somewhat cloudy but very warm Tswalu Kalahari. We're sitting here with some white-browed sparrow weaver nests, and we're lucky enough to have two different weaver nests in a tree. So these sparrow weaver nests are quite easy to identify. They're very roughly made balls of grass with multiple entrances. It's quite a untidy affair. And here we have a masked weaver's nest. As you can see, it's a completely different style. This one's a very neat ball. Looks like a lot of effort and engineering went into this one's design. So you'll end up with a little bit of a difference here. But these are just two of the many species of weavers we have here. Good afternoon again. My name's Josh. I'm going to be your guide this afternoon for Tswalu Kalahari. And behind the camera is BK. Giving us a nice thumbs up there. Our plan for the afternoon is have a little look around and see what we can find of the smaller things. So in this case, we're looking at two different weaver nests, and then we're going to bumble on and see what we can find. But in the case of these white-browed sparrow weavers, they're colonial breeders with a dominant pair who will do most of the breeding, assisted by the other individuals. And those multiple entrances into these nests are a method to deter predators, in the fact that if a predator goes in one end, they can bail out the other. But generally you'll find the breeding is happening only in one nest, and the rest are for roosting for the rest of the pairs. Where if you look at our masked weaver's nest there to the left, which BK will head over to slowly. These guys are mated pairs and breed monogamously. As you can tell, it's a single affair. It's not a cooperative breeding at all. And a male will do his best to get a female's attention. He'll build a stunning nest, and if she approves, she'll move in. If not, she'll tear it apart. Janice, I agree with you. They are quite adorable. Very different construction styles. A big part of the Kalahari's signature species, if you like, is the massive sociable weaver's nest that stand out and can weigh up to a metric ton. So to see the differences between the species is quite cool. I think we're going to bumble on and leave these weavers in peace. I do know these white-browed are here. They've been popping in and out. But for our masked weaver, he doesn't seem to be in attendance, so it might be an abandoned nest. But let's see what we can find, folks. So folks, we're going to keep on bumbling and see what else we can find for you. We're going to be sending you across to Ngala, where Yapi would like to say good afternoon.
A very warm welcome to all our viewers to and beyond Ngala, where we are currently looking at a massive storm building over Ngala. Started out with this being a few very hot days, and now a few clouds in the sky this morning. It's developed into this massive thing. I'm Yapi. Behind the camera we've got Gert, and we've actually come here while we were looking at the storm building. We were trying to see what effects it might have on something special that we were looking for this morning. There they are. Just have a look at that. Shame you can see the eyes are half open. Flat down, very short, quick breaths. And they're pretty much feeling like all of us are feeling here in Ngala now. Quite lethargic and drained because of this heavy humidity that's built up here. Have a look, the eyes open up a little bit bigger, and that's because we can hear some thunder in the background. The mother's also having a good rest off on the side. Now, they were down in the riverbed earlier today, and it was very tricky. We couldn't really get to them. But I think they've come up to the clearing because of the slight breeze that's here. And the other thing is, as you can see, what she's doing now, it's a good spot to scan the area. And not far in front of her, there's quite a bit of water at the moment. And these clearings are short grass clearings near a riverbed. So the perfect spot for general game to come and have a drink, and then also, of course, to feed. See that little head just going up and down because of the siblings breathing. Now, what should be interesting to see this afternoon, I'm sure the lioness is aiming at trying to see if she might be able to find something and even attempt to hunt. But with these little ones, tonight should be very interesting. If it comes down, if the rain does come down as heavily as it's expected to, and it's quite the experience for them. It can be a little bit traumatic. They're still very young, and even though they've been born into the season, luckily, which means that they've experienced a couple of interesting heavy storms, I don't think it's an experience that they particularly like. One of the other things with regards to a situation like this is also, I've often seen cats get very active on humid afternoons like this. And what we're hoping for is maybe this afternoon, with the area that we're in, we might be able to see a little bit of action. Well, that's at least what we hope for. So I think for now we'll stay here, see what happens. But in the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve and Juma, who's also got some very small animals.
We had some small animals. Unfortunately, they didn't stick around for very long. The little dwarf mongoose. They've taken off into the thickets. They were quite relaxed. So you might have heard me broach the word ecology before. And a lot of people think, oh my word, ecology. Here we go, just in that pathway. Can you see them? No. Ecology, let's do our little starling over here. Ecology, everybody. I know a lot of people think, oh goodness, we have to be an ecologist to understand what is ecology. No, you do not. Ecology is the study of how an organism in relation to the abiotic, which is the non-living components in the world, and the biotic, all of the living. So the starling, for example, how does it survive with the temperature, with the rainfall and climate, and with its food? How does it get food? And how does it survive predators? How does it breed? Where does it breed? And a lot of that can be determined by its coloration, its size, its beak, the position of its eyes, and of course all birds are very well insulated against the temperature. Let's just move forward. We might get him again. There we go. You got him? All birds are pretty well insulated against sorts of extreme temperatures, as well as against sort of cold heat temperatures. So they keep quite warm with the down feathers and the ability to insulate those feathers, tuck their feet in, and then when it's hot, they open their beaks, let the wind blow over, or they wet their feet. There he goes again. Or if they're not fans of the temperature change, the coldness, like many people, then they migrate. They go somewhere where conditions are more favorable. So ecology is a very interesting and broad sort of concept that can be related to everything. So this starling has adapted an ability to walk around the ground because flying is expensive. You look at the small birds, the hummingbirds, for example, that flight that they undergo requires an enormous amount of energy. For example, just think about how much fuel the helicopter expends staying up in the sky versus a glider. A very different concept. So these are things we can talk about, and these are things we're going to delve into today with regards to how animals fit into the environment here, with regards to all of the ecological requirements. And we're going to send you over to Taylor, who's on foot in Pridelands.
because that's what we tend to find almost every single day, is elephants. That was a big elephant bull. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Niels, and we are here at Pridelands Conservancy, which is part of Tswalu Game Reserve and the Greater Kruger Park. Now, I've got my voice hushed a little bit at the moment, although I feel like I could probably talk a bit louder, because maybe you can hear the wind gusting. We've had a dramatic change of weather, I kid you not, in about 3 minutes. It hasn't even been that long. Now, I'm sure you can see the dramatic clouds that are forming, the almost dark blue in color behind that elephant. And that is because there is some big clouds, some thunder, all starting to develop from the south, slowly coming towards us. So we are expecting rain a little bit later, hopefully after bushwalk, but we'll see how that goes. But we've just managed to catch up with the elephant bull that was spending some time, actually quite a long time, at Tswalu Dam, right outside the eco training camp. You can see he's also dark in coloration, not because he's a storm, but just because he's been playing in the water. Dig Dag, I think you asked, do elephants have toes or twins? It could go either way there. Toes. I'm assuming toes. Do elephants have twins? No, I was completely wrong. Okay. Occasionally it can happen. I have not seen it myself. I've never seen an elephant cow with twins, but there have been quite a few reports, and not too long ago, maybe about a year and a bit ago, maybe even 2 years now, time flies. But I know that in Tanzania there was I think it was in the Serengeti ecosystem, there were elephant twins that were born. So it does happen. Sure, I feel very sorry for an elephant cow that has to have twins, though, because one calf is enough, and they can be quite a handful at times. So yeah, it would be really amazing to see something like that. However, that elephant over there will definitely never have twins, as it is a male. But we did see a cow and a not a super young calf, maybe a few years old, moving through. So I think we might actually even be right at the end of a breeding herd of elephants. And he's just disappearing over the rise now and into the thickets. But I think from here we'll probably head back towards Tswalu Dam and see if the next lot of elephants are going to come through to have a drink. It hasn't been too busy today at the dam. There's been obviously a couple around. Something that we did manage to do this morning, which would be great to have on foot, is we were able to track a herd of buffalo, and we found them, and I thought that they were going to arrive at Tswalu Dam. They
Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist Craig Sholto Douglas at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, Beyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The Beyond Pinder conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
For all of you Wild Earth Explorers who bought plaques, today is the day that you will make your very first safari on our vehicle. Because we are quite remote here in the bush, they have taken some time to arrive, but I am happy to say they are here and they look great. Marcel has spent the day attaching them. Let's take a look.
Before we mount these nameplates, we just give a light dusting of green paint. This is to better match them to the color of the vehicles and also to decrease the reflectivity of the metal and thereby staying sensitive towards the animals.
Bumble crew, hopefully Dan Black, Liesel Apgar, and Alicia George. Well, it's time for me to get ready to take you all on a safari. Let's go.
Hello, I'm Marna, your Wild Earth Safari Guide from and beyond Gala. What I really like about connecting with Wild Earth viewers is that we get to speak to viewers instantly, and I get to show you this beautiful property. If you want to ask me a question, register on the Wild Earth website. Simply head over to the live safari page and you can submit your questions there. Join me or one of the other guides twice a day on Wild Earth.
Well, folks, we didn't have to wait long. We just came into some luck and found a lovely herd of common eland. This is the largest living antelope. Along with your giant eland, these bulls that you can see on the screen here can weigh anything up to 900 kilos. So it's an incredibly large antelope. As you can see, they're paying quite a bit of attention to us while the rest of the herd is feeding. And they're not too phased. So we got this herd at around 55, 60 individuals. It's quite a nice big herd. So you'll find the herds grow a little bit larger during the rainy season, and they disperse a bit more into smaller groups. Obviously in the dry season as food becomes more scarce. Herds of over 1,000 have been recorded. I'd love to see personally. I think that's amazing. Seen a herd of about 110 here on Tswalu, and it is seriously impressive. So always nice to catch up with this shy antelope. Primarily browsers. They will, however, graze when the grass is green, and they have been known to dig for tubers and roots and that when the opportunity presents itself, or if there's nothing else to eat. So quite a nice sighting here with such a large antelope herd. And there's one particular bull standing just staring at us while other individuals are feeding. So nice and easy to identify. He's a lot larger than the females, and they go almost a steel dust gray as they get a bit older and bulk out. So both male and females have horns, with the males just being a little bit thicker and robust with distinct edges on it, obviously for when fighting, so those horns don't slide against each other. Hello, Jackie, age 9, and thank you for your question. Where else can you find eland? So, eland can be found over most of southern and eastern Africa, and their numbers are quite large. Although there's been no official count of how many there are, it's believed, Jackie, that there are over 100,000 eland. So that's quite a large number. But you can find them anywhere from here in South Africa at Tswalu, all the way up north to Kenya, where they've even been found up to 5,000 meters up Mount Kenya. It is slowly but surely feeding. I think there's still a few more individuals on the other side of the dune, folks. Every now and then we get one or two popping out over that dune crest. So quite spread out. So I think we're going to spend a little bit more time with this herd and just get an idea of how big it really is. We're going to be sending you across to Djuma, where Trishala has something to share with you.
I do have another antelope, much smaller than the eland though, even though you wouldn't think, oh, a waterbuck is so small. Oh, and now the waterbuck all moved. But at least we have a really, really lovely warthog munching away. This warthog has been busy for the last couple minutes with proper intent. It must be very, very hungry. It almost has a frenzy, feeding frenzy face on. Yes, of course, that's exactly. Look at it. Absolutely enjoying it. What was that? Everyone? What was some waterbuck? It's not around, but they're hard to see. But it was lovely. The waterbuck, the warthog, and some impala as well. All just munching away here at Chitwa. Not quite at the dam just yet. Oh, they've come out. There's those waterbuck. So I said these antelopes much smaller than the eland. Thunder. But that's because the eland is the largest antelope, as you would have been told, and they weigh hundreds of kgs. Some even close to a ton. So compared to an eland, these guys are much smaller, only about 230 kgs or so. Look at this. Look at this. The antelope that we get. Yeah.
So there's a very serious game going on here now. You can see there's a bit of pawing, the two on the ground. And here and there, a little bite to the face. Some good practice for when they eventually do get to the stage where they'll have to fend and hunt for themselves. And away, and that one there on the left's laying upside down, and that what seems to be quite an awkward position. It's almost as if he wants to play, but I think the full belly after the milk is starting to take a lot of energy, and is probably starting to make him a little bit tired. And they look like they want to play, they look like they want to be moving around a little bit, but with the mother being as flat and tired as she is. I think they're behaving themselves very well. What we're seeing here, so right behind where these little lion cubs are, there's a dry riverbed, and it's quite a deep one, quite a steep one. It's very, very dense in there with a lot of little tributaries running into it. And I think if anything had to come here, well, of course, they got the mother to protect them. But then at least they got that backup safety of running down into one of the dense thickets in that area. You can see from the mother's side, she's not too worried. The only thing now is that this is a spot that's quite popular amongst the elephants moving through the area. Few herds as well as occasionally buffalo bulls that come to wallow in the pans nearby. And they've got the clearings covered, because there they can use their keen eyesight to have a look, see if there's anything approaching from either side. I think the aim of the mother is more to take advantage of a situation. Say something like zebra or wildebeest might come to this area. Now, I haven't noticed any in the nearby area when we came in, and I think the reason for that is that maybe they're aware of her presence. There's a nopple duck flying over, and you can see it's just drawn their attention. When they're this age, they're quite vulnerable, but they don't miss anything. And lions do a bit of bird watching, funnily enough. Talking about bird watching, I think we're gonna head over to Steve, who's got some birds of his own.
Welcome back to June, everyone. We do indeed have another bird, a different type of bird to the one we saw before. This is the, I call it again, bulbul, dark-capped bulbul, sitting on top of a tree, a buffalo thorn tree, and it has been bathing. We're just here at the sort of spillway of the Fuatila Dam, and birds will bathe regularly so as to clean themselves, remove themselves of dust, or remove themselves of parasites, or there's lots of cleaning that goes on. We've got another bird in this tree over here. You can see him sort of top right. So I just want you all not to feel too daunted with the word ecology, because right now we're talking a little bit about bird ecology. You get plant ecology, you get mammal ecology, and then, of course, freshwater. You also get marine ecology, and obviously it can get quite broad, but that's where people specialize. But look at something, have a look at what it looks like, what's its appearance, how big is this, how big is that, what does it have here, what does it have there, and through those means, you'll start to figure out how does it survive, how does it reproduce, how does it breed? How does it get its food? Have you got a bird there, Paul? Okay, so what color is he? Where does it grow? Does it get access to water through large roots or through shallow roots? Does it live for long periods of time, or does it live for very short periods of time? All of these sort of mechanisms are ecology. For example, to put it into a broader perspective, and one that maybe everybody understands clearly, is humans have basically overstepped our ecological bounds by developing clothes to allow us to live in climates we wouldn't normally be able to live in. Shoes to enable us to walk further than we normally could, and then we invented the car to help us drive far further than we could. I mean, driving 20, 30 k's, 100 kilometers isn't a lot these days. Imagine walking that every day. It's just not feasible. We weren't designed to do it like that. And so out and we live in homes and shelters, and so we've sort of surpassed a lot of the ecological adaptations needed to survive. First out in the wilderness, and we are raw and
and 3-minute sections. So you can see that they are still in the same place. They look like the playing's been quieting down a little bit. You almost get the feeling that they want to be a little bit more active. And what I've noticed recently is that this lioness, so it's an interesting story because she used to be what I thought not a very good mother with some litters in the past. And it's amazing to see, or actually having the opportunity to see how these animals develop and how she's developed into quite a good mother. For these little ones, she's been taking very good care of them. She's been taking them with where she needed to, and she stays with them. Where the first and second litter, she usually left them for long days at a time. And none of her cubs made it out of those litters. Third litter, 2 females did make it. They're doing pretty well at the moment. And they are about 2.5 years old already. Okay, there we go. Now it's getting a little bit more intense. You can see the claws come out every now and again. Trying to go for the soft spots. I got that name correct, Tlejo. These lion cubs started eating meat at around, they were actually feeding on meat quite early on, like around 2.5 months we already saw them eating meat. At the moment they are basically 3 months old. So they're still very young and they've already started, and I think it's also part of the weaning process. I saw just now when they wanted to go and have a drink, the mother has been stopping them from drinking. She doesn't just let them drink whenever they want to. That's usually the start, and that's when we know the little ones are switching between drinking the milk as well as having some meat. I think it's also just easier on the mother that way and on them. And she's been traveling quite a bit of, she's been covering quite a bit of ground with them. They're so small. They've been walking very far distances, and it's amazing to see how suddenly, after about 2 months, the pace just gets picked up. You can see her head's also picked up now. And that's because there's quite a steady breeze coming from the direction that she's looking in. So I think the scent of any animals nearby might be picked up. And then also the winds often a factor that changes their behavior. You can see the cloud cover has now covered a substantial part of the sky, and I think it's moving in quickly, and that's why this breeze has just picked up. And usually with something like this, a change like this, there you go, there's a yawn. This might be a time for her to make a move. You can see the little ones. They're also a little bit more aware at the moment, so they're watching her very carefully. They know. Always still a little bit of time for play. Now, where she is it's an interesting part because like a lot of the Pride members were found quite far off from this area this morning, and even though they've moved and we're not sure where they are at the moment, I kind of get the idea that these lions came because they came to look for some of the rest of the Pride members. We had two younger ones, two sub-adults yesterday on their own, and then later on a male lion joined up with them, and I'm pretty sure that they were aware that the rest of the Pride, the part that we haven't been seeing, must be somewhere in this area. And I think she had a bit of a longing to get back to the older lionesses and see how they were doing. And that meant these little ones had to follow her for a long time. You can see that one's got a proper grip there behind the ear, the other one. That must be quite sore. So when the mouth was open, oh, they had got a good grip on the ear. You can see that little teeth there. Now that little teeth, every time they drink, that must be quite painful. Shreya, what is the factors of determining a pride's favorite meal? That's a very good question. I don't know the exact answer or what to give as an exact answer, but if I had to take a guess, I'd say it's only environmental factors, and that's usually determined largely by the particular area that they found in. So it depends on the availability of the prey species, like what prey species they have, whether it's more wildebeest, more buffalo, and then also things like genetic inheritance within the lions. Also learned behavior to an extent, like what the pride has been trying to hunt and what they've learned to hunt, and then passing that on to the next generations. So I'd say there's a lot of different factors, but the main factor would be the specific area that the animals are found in. Because it can be quite tricky. I'm sure it changes over time as well. What's interesting about this pride is that when I met them at first, I knew this pride as a pride that hunts buffalo. But after it became so dry towards the end of 2017, we haven't had the same amount of buffalo in the area that we used to see. In 2016, at the height of the drought, there was a huge decline in buffalo numbers. And we could actually markedly note how the lions changed their choice of prey species. Another thing that I've noticed with this particular pride is they're quite large, very strong lions, and they come from a good gene pool. But oddly enough, they hunt a lot of impala. fact, I think out of our recorded prey species, most of the carcasses that we've seen lately, it has mainly been impala that we've noted has had quite a rise over the last few years. Because the buffaloes have been out of the area, we've recently started seeing large herds, but because they've mainly been out of the area, we got to see them eat a lot of wildebeest. But while this lioness decides what to do, I think we'll head over to Steve, who's at a dam.
Welcome back, everybody. Apologies for earlier. I'm not sure how far we got into the discussion there, but we're back with some birds, and we are going to delve and do all things ecology this afternoon. I hope you don't mind, but it will be a wonderful learning experience for many. And for example, these guinea fowl accumulate in a group. They got lots of spots. Their breeding readiness comes at a time when they've got blue heads, so that advertises to the other individuals that they are ready, and they're able to survive off many, many different types of vegetation types, and their adaptation to the ecosystem is profound. That's why they don't have to migrate anywhere, and that's why there's so many of them around. They actually form a buffer food for many of our predators in times of sort of low prey availability. So when we move from the guinea fowl into the water that we have here, we've got some ripples of a hippo, but let's go to the plant just floating over here. And life itself all sort of originated from the oceans, and the earliest life forms came in the form of plant life, the green algae in the oceans, which was able to then photosynthesize, and that's what created the oxygen that we have in our atmosphere, and that is where life started. Now, plants in the ocean, as well as animals in the ocean, aren't encumbered by gravity. So animals can get very large. Plants never needed to form any form of structure. So that's why you can get plants that just expand huge amounts of area, and they can lose lots and lots of energy or get rid of the need to form heavy structures. As soon as you come out of the water, plants have to suddenly absorb a lot more carbon so as to be able to produce more structure, so as to be able to get them higher and higher, so as to be able to get the sunlight. And plants in the water like this obviously compete with other plants of the water, but they just spread out. And very, very primitive sort of systems. They're able to absorb nutrients directly from the water because it's already there in solution. It doesn't have to come from the soil. Remember, the soils are always washing into the oceans and into the rivers, so there's always nutrient pools there to be had. The adaptations that these plants have is their ability to survive in the water and be able to absorb the oxygen from the atmosphere. Absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and releasing oxygen. And that adaptation is what has led to the entire ecological sort of environment that the world is today. Without those early green algae, nothing would be the way it is right now. But then those plants moved out of the ocean. And if we just go over to the bank on the other side, you'll see the competition in a little band of trees and grasses over there, as there's a number of tree species, number of grass species. They can't move like they can in water. They're now cemented in one place with roots accessing the water. All of them are competing for the same space. All of them are competing for the nutrients that are there, because the nutrients are not moving around like in the water. And at the same time, they're also competing for sunshine. So the ecology of that little clump over there is very, very important, and how they've sort of evolved to live with each other, how they've evolved to distribute their seeds away from where they are, because they're already competing with other plants. So why would you want to have your babies growing at your feet? that doesn't make sense. So all of the strategies that many of our plants have of obviously distributing their seeds comes about with regards to where they live, how old they are on a sort of ecological point of view. For example, some of them will distribute them by wind, some by water. Some have specifically got certain insects that will distribute them. Others rely heavily on birds, and some have gone so far as to rely on mammals and even as far as humans. As you look around the globe today, look at the largest crops in the world. Without humans, those crops would not exist. So those plants have filled an ecological role in society, and their ecological role has been very successful for them because they are a valuable food source. So can you see how broad ecology is in the greater sense of things? Everything out there has got a role. Everything is designed and doing something to survive in the elements. We find ourselves here in the summer rainfall biome of the savanna, where temperatures don't get too cold. There's no frost, so there's no need for these trees and plants to evolve against frost. There is fire, so frost and fire are both non-living entities. So many of the plants have evolved a bark-like structure to protect them against fire, or they are like grasses which thrive on fire and they send their nutrients into the roots, which is a very, very important adaptation. Because once the fire burns through, those grasses then will be stimulated for next season. Obviously, if some of the trees don't get to a certain height, they will get burnt by the fire. Well, scenic, essentially aquatic plants do occur in water areas. They move into those areas if they weren't there beforehand, and they're very important as they filter out the nutrients. The nutrients are constantly filtering down into these aquatic systems. Estuaries are a prime example. Estuaries are the sponges of nutrients that absorb huge amounts of nutrients from going into the ocean, and wetlands around the world, which are filled with reeds and sedge-like plants, which are vitally important to the regulations of flooding, are being destroyed. There are less than 5% of natural wetlands left in the world because of their nutrient sinkability. Wetlands are hugely, hugely full of nutrients, and so from an agricultural point of view, they've fallen favor for many places around the world to grow food, which makes sense. If you're trying to get nutrient-rich soil, a wetland is a great place. But from an ecological point of view, the destruction to the wetlands is being seen on a global scale. We're seeing floods of mass proportion that have never been seen before. We're seeing eutrophication of our oceans that's never been seen before, sedimentation of our oceans as well, and huge amounts of agricultural practices that obviously the world will eventually move in that direction. But unfortunately, anthropomorphic disturbances in the world are accelerating many of these aspects.
On the 27th of April, Wild Earth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what Wild Earth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. We are offering a 20% discount on all books bought before the end of March. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
With a slew of potential dangers lurking, it's essential to be aware of your surroundings whilst walking in the wilderness.
20 yards away from one of the most endangered species. This is a big bull.
What a moment, what a close encounter with an Ellie bull. He's just over here now. He's moved completely away.
Being on a bushwalk and seeing a leopard, I mean, it's ridiculous to be this close to a leopard on foot and for him not to run is absolutely insane. How crazy was that? Through the gap there is just the back of the head of a male lion. He is absolutely unaware that we are here right now. I'll tell you, seeing lions on foot, it definitely brings out the caveman in you, this little scared human being.
I got into wildlife filmmaking because of a passion for nature and a notion that I could make a difference. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun. A couple of times per week, we receive some very heartfelt messages from viewers telling us about how Wild Earth has made a difference in their life, whether it's helped them through a difficult period or simply helped them to reconnect with nature. I think that's why we do what we do.
Welcome back to the ecology of Vuyatela Dam, and we've got a few thickneys just hanging on the edge of the watering hole there, and having a look at them. First thing you notice is they're very camouflaged. They are always next to the water, not far away at all, which means that they've got a particular type of habitat. The way that they breed is interesting as well. And their food source is primarily insectivorous. A lot of that gathered by the water's edge. There's one crawling there as well. So ecology of how an organism survives, where they survive, around the world, the different climatic conditions combined with the different soil conditions and elevation are three other elements. Well, I suppose climate is the rainfall and the frost, the temperature. Fire is one we spoke about before. And then altitude leads to temperatures being cooler. For example, the top of mountains are much colder than the valley bottoms in the coastline. Salinity is another very important element that's not living. And how these animals fit into their environment, those are all of the abiotic factors, the non-living. So once you can get past that and you find out where the preferred area is and how these animals have evolved to live there, then you can start looking at how they evolved with the other organisms themselves, so other thickneys, or with predators, crocodiles, monitor lizards, birds of prey. What is it that they do to survive against these individuals? And it's not uncommon to see a thickney parent chasing away a monitor lizard or making itself very big and wide and standing with the wings spread out to protect a clutch of eggs that's just hidden on the ground in just a scratch of sand, completely camouflaged to the ground with eggs that are known as pyriform, which means that they don't roll away. If they roll in a circle and back to where they started. So the bottom is fatter than the top, pyriform, not like that. So that's an adaptation that birds had to go through to lay eggs on the ground. So probably a very basic sort of egg laying, or should I say nesting strategy, but the ability to change the egg shape, because you must understand the cloaca of a bird is only a specific size. Now the egg is going to come out at a very different angle and different shape, and that can't be easy for the bird to do. But it can also influence the time of year for breeding. When is the food available? When is it too hot if you have your eggs just on the sand? So how the birds survive in those environments, like Gavin's asking, wetland birds. Well, Gavin, wetland birds have got many, many different types of strategies. It depends on whereabouts you are in the wetland. There are many reeds and sedges, and there's many, many warblers and aquatic, or should I say small little LBJs that nest in and around those sort of sedges and reeds. birds that use the grass themselves, which is obviously green most of the year, so they can actually change their breeding strategy due to the fact that wetlands are generally always wet because of the rainfall and the moisture. So that can also influence when those birds can breed. But many of the aquatic birds that we talk about, these francolin are not aquatic birds, although they do come down to drink. Many of the wetland birds that we can talk about are actually very seasonal. Many of them actually fly all the way in from Europe into our summer months to come and spend time down in South Africa where they don't breed. Many of them will go back and breed that side, and many of them sort of just hang around on the edge of watering holes, edge of wetlands, and they've got very different designs of beaks. Pied avocet, the sandpipers, and the length of the beak, the length of the leg, the shape of the beak, the angle, does it curve up, does it curve down, allows them to feed at a very different position in the landscape versus some of their counterparts. Obviously, many of the other birds we have that float around, like grebes, geese, ducks, cormorants, all of them have got so many different specializations to survive in those wetland aquatic systems. But the specialization is just slightly different from their counterpart, but enough so that both of them can live in a very similar environment, accessing a very different resource. Cormorants and darters have evolved themselves to not preen themselves at all, to not even have the glands, so that they can physically swim under the water and catch fish. So that means that they have to spend time sunning themselves, spending time out on logs in the sunshine so they can dry, because trying to fly when you are soggy wet makes life very difficult. So that's a very, very unique adaptation, the swimming birds. And obviously all of the birds that we have that filter feed, ducks, geese, flamingos, the ability to actually physically filter feed the algae out of the water is a very unique adaptation, which allows those animals to survive in places where others might struggle. So there's a variety of wetland birds, and wetlands and estuaries are an absolute smorgasbord of bird ecology and organism ecology, because in the wetlands themselves you can get different gradients of salinity. And in the Knysna estuary, for example, because it's open to the ocean, the Knysna estuary is down in the Southern Cape, because it's open to the ocean, you've actually got lines in the sand where the salinity has changed. So 1 centimeter left or right, and the salinity is at a different level. And that changes and shifts all the time. So you've actually got organisms that live in this band, and live in that band, and live in that band, that cannot tolerate the other band, or the other band, left or right. So slight changes in salinity lead to massive diversity. And that's why our oceans are so diverse, because of the different habitats, the different abilities of these organisms to survive in areas where things change quite drastically. And temperature is obviously a big one, but salinity is an enormous element in the environment for some organisms to survive. So estuaries, especially open to the ocean, unfortunately, many of them, because they are the sinks, they are the drainage of the land, and anthropomorphic activities inland have also, and still are, impacting on wetlands and estuaries at the same time. Okay, well, it sounds like Trishala's caught up with a massive animal. Let's hope it's some elephants.
It most definitely is an elephant, but always good to confirm, Steve. That gave me a bit of a chuckle. How gorgeous. I'm so glad. You know, I've been looking for elephants for a while. Haven't been lucky. And this is just outside of Chitwa. And last time I had elephants, it was at Chitwa. So maybe that's where I've got to go. Well, this bull is by himself, but there is a herd nearby that will time with him. And really, I just want to listen and watch as he feeds, because they're just beautiful, so deliberate, You can also hear the thunder in the background. I love hearing thunder and looking at elephants because it is the one thing that seems to actually compete with their presence. Freddie, you'd like to know how sensitive elephants are to the weather? Quite sensitive. Obviously, it's a difficult thing to answer because you're asking about sensitivity. But what I can tell you is that there have been instances where elephants have left a certain area, and by leaving that certain area, they've been avoiding storms, even hundreds of kilometers away, but are moving to that area. They've been able to detect that a storm is coming and then move off. They wouldn't, that wouldn't have been published if it wasn't correlated, as in it's not a coincidence. So they definitely are sensitive to the weather, especially when it comes to storms. And that's because thunder, the sound of thunder is also a low frequency hum or sound. And they themselves are good receivers of that kind of sound. So they would definitely know that a storm is coming. But somehow they seem to know the difference between a storm, like a thunderstorm, where they could expect lightning, which would mean danger, and there just being some rain, which is amazing. But like I said, they've been known to detect thunderstorms over 100 kilometers away. Isn't he beautiful? He's so relaxed. Fine, I will mention the elephant in the room. Yes, he does have his penis very, very extended. And that would be a show of dominance. He's feeling a little bit like he wants to tell us that he's the boss. He's probably experiencing a heightened level of testosterone a little bit. And that's why he is showing us all his glory so that we know that he's way bigger than us. But it's not a sign of aggression because he's quite calm. Still busy feeding. He's quite far from, well, I mean, he's not very close to us. Hi, Jamie. You're 5 years old. That is an excellent question. You'd like to know if you'd be able to survive without his tusks? Yes, he most definitely will. There's lots and lots of elephants that have no tusks. Usually, they're females, but males also have been born with no tusks. So that does happen, and it's fine. The animals can still survive. But for a male, it's a little bit more difficult because they use the tusks to compete, to fight with other males. And so maybe in a fight, he won't do too well if he didn't have tusks. But that is an excellent question. He'll still be able to eat. So he'll still be able to survive, but he may not be able to reproduce. Look, he's got an earring. used his foot, his nails, to cut the grass. So he held it with his trunk and then he uses his nails. Hello. I'm just going to quickly shift you to these sand grouse that are acting as if nothing's happened. They don't have this massive elephant next to them. No, just minding their own business. Yeah, those look like double-banded sand grouse. Male and female. I love looking at small animals when there's something else happening or something else going on, and I wonder if they even know there's a big elephant around. He's moved a little bit further away from us now. He's flapping his ears. I hope you could hear that. So gorgeous. You can hear that the rain is coming down now. So we're going to move off in a bit. Oh, bit of a stretch there. I actually wonder if this male might have a problem. And because I've not seen the penis extended for this long without any reason. So let's hope that he's fine. Or you'll see some kind of movement. Oof, that's some proper thunder. That's the sound I love of them moving through the grass and eating. So Jamie asked that question about his tusks and whether he'd survive. And I said to her that there are many elephants that are born without tusks. And that's actually a result of the ivory trade. So there were population of elephants in Mozambique that got pretty much obliterated, but it was only those elephants that had tusks that had been killed. And tusklessness at the time was very rare. But those without tusks managed to survive. So that frequency of the gene for tusklessness increased quite a bit. So now you see more elephants born without tusks than previously. As in more than you would have seen, during ivory trade times, but not a whole lot as in on Djuma. I've only seen one tuskless female on Djuma. Anyway, let me send you over to Tswalu for an update. I want to find the herd.
Folks, looks like you spent some nice time with Ellies. It's definitely an animal I miss guiding here in the Kalahari, as much as I gained exposure to so many different other species. I do miss seeing the gentle giants. They're definitely something I miss. So you find us in the northern side of Tswalu, north of our lodge, just bumbling along, having a look what's going on. And we've got one or two destinations in mind. One in particular, we're hoping potentially to find a Cape Cobra, which has a habit of inhabiting a sociable weaver's nest at an old dune dinner site. So we're slowly bumbling up there. Maybe we get lucky. And like always in the bush, you just never know. But as you can see, a little bit of a front building up here in front of us. So once again, maybe we'll be lucky and get a little bit more rain in the green Kalahari. Of these armored ground cataracts on the road, they'll vanish with the first rains. Well, not the first rains, the first cold. Where am I originally from? So I was born in Kenya, and I grew up between there and here in South Africa, but I was originally born on the Maasai Mara. Here's something we haven't seen in a little while. Just to our left, completely ignoring us, is a bull. Let's see if maybe if we give him a little bit of time, he'll be kind enough to sit and give us a little bit of a smile. No, he's rather intent on ignoring us by the looks of things at the moment. So as you can tell, with the clouds coming over, it's starting to cool down a little bit and our game's getting a bit more active. So he's having a little nibble there. Very similar face painting almost to your gemsbok, but obviously a very different horn structure, which you can see quite clearly there, as well as a very different colored animal. I'm going to try and see. He's definitely not going to smile for us at the moment. Just having a look if there's any way we can maneuver the vehicle here on the road to try and give you a look at his face, folks. But I don't think he's going to oblige us at the moment. Just going to roll a little bit forward, see if we can't get a different perspective on him. Just get lucky a little further along here. It's a little thick, but we're going to see if BK can work his magic and show us that beautiful face. Oh, he's not interested in posing for us today, that's for sure. Nah, he's definitely not interested in us. Just having a nibble there and carrying on with life. So I think we're going to keep bumbling then. We'll leave him in peace. We'll see what else we can find. spurts. Very quick visual there.
Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at and Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist Craig Sholto Douglas at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, and Beyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The and Beyond Pinder conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
Wild Earth Explorer Jenny recently joined Tristan as he broadcast live from Djuma.
Awesome to kind of have a guest on board. I'm looking forward to this. This is Jenny.
Hi everyone.
And Jenny is the first of our Ticket to Dream holders.
If you want to go on safari with a Wild Earth guide, whilst honing your bush knowledge and of course featuring in one of our shows, then head over to our website.
Literally being with Tristan on the vehicle today has been incredible. It has truly been a dream come true.
Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and you could be making your first ever on-screen appearance.
I would highly recommend being a part of the Explorer program and being able to be a part of an interactive live drive.
It's a huge privilege to be in these incredible places with these amazing animals. I love filming lions. When they do get up and do something, it's always spectacular. When they are playing, are incredibly fun to watch, especially sub-adults and cubs. I love being in the bush and working in these incredible places with these amazing animals. We want to bring it to you so that you can almost feel like you're right there and be able to experience it and enjoy it the way we are.
Alert, alert. Cute baby, elephant baby interaction. We're just gonna watch and enjoy. If you have any questions, of course, send it through, but the sound and just watching it is so cute. It's big, big bits of this vegetation and it's throwing it all over the place. This baby looks like it's about 3 or 4 years old. I'd lean closer to 3 because it's actually quite tall, but the tusks are quite small. And Denise, you say, yay, it's baby elephant time. Absolutely, I haven't had enough of this. And I certainly haven't had it in a while, so I'm so glad to just sit and watch a baby elephant do its thing. I love at this age, they try to imitate, or they, imitate the adults. But they try to do it with a difference. And the younger, they're also imitating the adults and trying to use their trunk and things. But when they're about 3 years old, and 3, 4, 5, they try to have the same kind of like flow in their movements. So they don't just do something because it works, like taking something and putting it into their mouth. When they try and hit vegetation against themselves to release soil, they try to be fancy, as if they have the same technique as the adults. And that's why this is so amusing. Because it's not that it doesn't have good use of its trunk yet. It's just at this age where it's trying to copy the adults. See? Instead of hitting it against its chest, like, no, I'm gonna hit it from side to side on my face. And look at that, look at that. This is a very, very small part of the herd, but there's another youngster there. But this is a portion of a bigger herd. That little one is littler than the one that we were watching. And they're making a lot of sound out there, flapping ears. Oh, look at that, look at that. Do you hear that scream? That's the rest of the herd. Gorgeous. Well, I'm going to find the rest of the herd, hopefully. I'm going to send you over to Tswalu with Josh.
Well, folks, welcome back. We're sitting here on one of our dune crests in the north, having a little look at another one of our weaver family, this being the sociable weaver. And as you can see, quite a bland little guy, but incredible. So that very thick mandible is designed for seeds as well as insects. And if BK will give us a look, we'll show you what he's capable of building. And there you get an idea of a very small sociable weaver's nest. This one is part of a much bigger one, which by the looks of things, unfortunately, broke the tree branch it was on and has come to its end. Now, what you will find is the birds will try and reuse a large amount of that mass, but these nests can weigh up to a metric ton. Now, if you add in rain and that extra weight from the water, as well as quite strong winds, it's not hard to see why they're capable of breaking the limbs that they're being built on. In this case, a limb from a silver cluster leaf. If BK is willing to pan a little bit to the left there, you'll get an idea of how much rain we've had here by looking at the root system, which has been exposed not only by the rain, but also by the wind. See, there's a lot of exposed area there. So I think this nest was definitely not going to win, but that root system's quite strong in keeping that tree here. So these birds have quite an interesting little relationship with your pygmy falcons, who will occasionally take over a chamber, and although they might steal a chick or two, what they are very good at is keeping away your snakes. Now, your Cape cobras and boomslangs are very partial to a chick or two, and obviously are capable of eating a lot more than, say, a pygmy falcon would. Also seen acacia-pied barbets and one or two other species who will use the chambers for roosting. I haven't personally seen it, but I have read that red-headed finches will do it as well. So I'd be quite interested to see. I think this entire little sociable weaver colony almost becomes its own micro-ecosystem with a lot going on. Everything from snakes and that to your weavers. And you'll notice some of your skinks and ground-gummers, when they hear the alarm calls from the social weavers, also scatter. So there's a lot of mutual warnings and that going on in this area. But they make quite a racket. So they can have colonies up to 500. So Lolo, how many sociable weavers are needed to build this nest? Well, colonies can get anything up to 500 individuals or breeding pairs. And I'd say you'd probably find that they slowly branch off from existing colonies. So one like this would have been the work of anything up to 50, 60 different pairs, and over a period of time. So when you start to see the very big ones, you realize that if there's 200 or 300 individuals in there, then that's a lot of concerted effort from quite a large building team. Just thinking about it now, I'd definitely say with some of the larger ones I've seen, we have one, for example, that's taken over our airport's arrival building. That's years of work from hundreds of individuals. So although a bird might die or a pair might move on, that chamber will then be reused. So definitely take quite a while. This lovely weaver giving himself a preen there. If we sit and listen, you can hear lots of them talking. Looks like this individual is doing a little bit of maintenance to the bottom of his nest there. Oh. So Denise, they'll live in this colony for most of their lifetimes, if not all of it. The only thing that would potentially force them to move on would be a lack of food, or if in the case of like here, where this nest is completely broken off, if there was nothing left behind, they might choose a different location just based on the fact that the tree doesn't have any other suitable branches, and maybe they need a slightly better building site for the next attempt. I believe there was a study done. What have we got going on here? BK's got quite an interesting visual into the nest there. There's definitely the adult. And if I'm not wrong, I think BK's managed to get us a look at one of the youngsters. As you can see, the adult's doing a little bit of maintenance to the nest there. Just making sure everything's where it needs to be. So, Ronald, how far into the nest do the tunnels go? It'll depend on where the tunnels are. Some of the entrances are fairly close to the edge of the nest, and in others I've seen tunnels of, I'd say, up to 10 centimeters. Obviously, this is what I've personally seen, but not necessarily the limit of how deep they could be, depending on where the nest is and how it's been built over time. But in general, they're fairly close to the edge. That build-up of mass just leads to a lot of chambers on the edges of it. Oh, head coming out. What's going on here? This is a rather busy individual today. It's obviously Sunday and doing a little bit of housekeeping. They do make a lot of noise as they talk, though. Just sitting here listening, it's quite entertaining how it sounds like they're all almost bickering. Well, I think we're going to start up, take a slow bumble. So before we get on the move, we've had a question from ATG. Do they build a new nest every year? So the answer to that is no. They will continue to live in this nest for the duration of their lifespans. Unless, of course, we'll end up with a scenario like this, where the nest falls out the tree and has to be rebuilt. I believe there was an experiment conducted where they ringed a bunch of sociable weavers to see how many of them left their natal colonies. And most of the individuals actually just added on or reused chambers within the natal colony. In this case, we're going to be going that way and seeing what else we can find. I've always found it incredible what weavers can do. Early on in the show, we spoke about southern mast and our white-browed sparrow weaver, and now the sociable, and you start to realize, A, how intelligent these birds are, but B, what incredible engineers they are. Even your white-browed with that very messy ball nest with the multiple entrances is still an impressive feat if you think about the fact that it's only using its beak and weaving grass. So quite an impressive trick. Well, we're going to carry on exploring and see what else we can find for you. We're going to be sending you across to Djuma and Steve.
Welcome back. And interesting, Josh says the landscape, because we are continuing our discussion on ecology, and what we are right now, we are on top of the landscape, on top of the hill, on top of what we here in the granitic soils of the Lowveld call the Katina. And the trees that you see growing here on top of this Katina are all very deep rooted. Why? To access the water. The water table is quite deep down, and their leaves, being on top of the landscape, have to be broad. The broader the leaf, the more pump action they have for pulling water up. But what happens as well, and an adaptation to that, because the top of the landscape is the first part of the landscape to lose its moisture, as the winter starts to get drier and drier, the trees on top of the landscape will lose their leaves, and that is an adaptation to the ecology of the landscape when there is no water available. The plant can't therefore afford to give off any more water, and if it kept its leaves, it would keep pumping water out of its leaves without anything being replaced, and that would lead to it drying out and land areas in the landscape. The majority of the trees are deciduous, which means that they lose their leaves as a result of lack of water due to the seasonality. Now, if you come from an area where there's abundance of water and rain all the time, for example in forests, the trees don't have to lose their leaves for that purpose, although they will replace them from time to time as the chlorophyll in the leaf itself, or the process of the landscape change.
sure we just managed to catch a gap as these boys are up now and on the move. But now we finally have a decent view, which is really, really cool. So again, I always ask you to take screenshots because it's amazing. I can't take any pictures, unfortunately. So while we're live, I really do rely on the screenshots, as sometimes it is the magic moment when we actually get to see them out and in the open. Remember to hashtag Wild Earth so that we can all see them a bit later. They're just going... There's the next one. I was about to say they're just going out of frame, but they're not. Here they are. So that's cool. And then here they come, just on the other side of all of the sickle bush and dead knob thorns and things. So now you can start to also see how eroded the site is. Minamu, they are quite handsome. This is why I'm also reluctant to say that they're the same lions from the last time. Just while you were away from us, I jumped onto my mobile device to see if I had any pictures stored, but I did clear it not too long ago. And the last time that I saw the other two younger males that we have seen before was after I cleared my phone, so it's a bit difficult to tell. But like I said, one really had super tatty ears. There is another fella here, the chap that's closest to us. He's got tatty ears, but it doesn't look the same. And I also thought that maybe the other boys were slightly older. But I could be mistaken. That was such a long time ago. So I'm going to rely on you guys. I think what I'm going to have to do, unfortunately, is turn around now. So we're going to have to go up and around. Let me quickly do that, just so that we can try and keep up with them. There are obviously other vehicles here on safari with us. So let's see. The students are also still learning, so we might just have to be patient. They haven't learned how to drive as well yet and make quick maneuvers. Always the funnest part about becoming a safari guide. Being in the vehicle is very daunting, like extremely daunting, and yes, it takes some time. Now, Gary, you've inquired about how long will these lions stay together. So these males will probably stay together their whole lives. So it's interesting. Obviously, the females in a pride will stick together, and they have their little family group. And if there are any males within a pride, once they get to a certain age, remember 2.5, 3 years old, as I was saying, sometimes a little bit later than that, they'll leave together, and they form coalitions. See if they just pause here. They're going to sit down. Yes, there we go. Oh, wow, gorgeous. So they're going to form a coalition and they're going to stay together, like I said, probably for the rest of their lives. Obviously, they might even have another lion join up with them. That's not an uncommon thing to do. The more lions you have in your coalition, the more chances you have of taking over a better area. So male lions don't just stick with one pride. They form a territory. And they might have 2 or 3, or again, if you've got quite a big coalition, you might have 3 or 4 different prides within your territory that you'll visit. It's a lot of hard work. Constantly having to protect the prides to make sure that their offspring survive so that their genetics can continue. And then, of course, to also protect the prides from intruding males. And big males will chase out young males like this because they might pop in between the different prides. So yeah, who knows where they're going to settle? There's ample place for them to go. I mean, I would love it if we could have some youngsters living here, like I said, maybe the southern section of the reserve. There's all the space. It's not a lot of space, though. It's not a massive area. But if they just laid low, they could definitely hide about here. I haven't really seen any of the big males doing any sort of big loops around to these southern sections, all the way into sort of Buffelshoek. Not Buffelshoek, north of the Sabi Sands. It's just an area that's called that on Pridelands, where all the buffalo like to hang around. Lots of mud wallows. It's a good place for them. It's also something we don't really see. We don't see the lions here hunting buffalo often. I mean, we've had one sighting with 2 male lions feasting on a buffalo, and it was the other 2 that we were telling you about, and then there were 2 older ones that came on in and chased them out eventually. Let's actually go back and look at my photos. I wonder if it is the same 2 that we saw yesterday. It'll be interesting. I unfortunately don't really have any pictures of those male lions. I think I managed to get 1, but I'll try and have a look. It just requires lengthy periods of time of sitting and staring at my computer. Kogel, as we watch them sort of play in the grass, it's going to be difficult to see their manes properly now. It's just them playing. They're going to maybe start roaring, which I thought was brave. So their manes will be fully grown around, well, their manes sort of continuously get a little bit bigger, but normally around 6 years old. They've got really good, decent manes. Their manes have creeped over their shoulders and down underneath their forelimbs, and they get sort of these tufts of hair on their elbows. So you can see that they're still quite young. But there's some darkening. Wait, down into the little drainage line. You see how distinctly deep that is? We're going to have to try and keep up with them now and hopefully get a view. So maybe closer to 4 now that they're up and moving. This is the first, you're getting the first view of them as I am right now, which is quite cool. So they're just going up the road. We're just crossing one of the big main roads in this area now. Hopefully we're going to catch another glimpse of them. Let's see. There they are. They actually are nice looking lions. Just pausing briefly. Oh, there we go. You can see they actually do have little tufts of hair on the back of their elbows. So maybe just over 4. But manes heavily depend on genetics as well. I've seen almost maneless lions in the Lower Zambezi Valley. Not quite maneless, but they look like 2-year-olds kind of thing. But these boys, they were very, very old. They've been around for a long time. They've now heard impala sorting, which are just up and to the left. Now, lions, if you come around to the right, you keep going into zebra clearing. There's lots of zebra there and impala. But those impala have now spotted you. Oh, shame. Anyways, so what I was saying is that manes are heavily dependent on genetics. So some lions get really big, beautiful black manes, and others don't. Now they're deciding what they're going to do next. You can't walk straight down the road towards the impala. That's not going to work. Right. I think we'll try and stick with these boys and see what they get up to. Off we go back across to Tess, who's now also sitting with some felines.
So I came around the corner here at and Beyond Ngala into a few members of the Birmingham Pride. And they are relaxing on this nice cool morning, but this young male seems to be very intrigued with the impala's alarm calling behind me. Look at that face. He's actually coming so close, I don't know if we'll get him. I'll try. So he looks... Oh, he's actually just laid down next to the back tire. So this is one of the Ross... We actually haven't seen the Ross males in a few days. And there's the young male's little sister sitting right next to her dad, just peeking over his shoulder. And this is the more dominant of the 2 Ross males. He's the darker one. And she's actually watching those impalas because I think she can see them just from behind our vehicle. I think it's very cute though that she's sitting with her dad. So you can see he's got quite a dark mane. I know that Taylor was talking about lions possibly having no manes and it being genetic, and that's exactly the case. We have seen a few male lions that hardly have any manes. He's got a particularly dark mane, and if you compare his mane to his brother is a lot more blonde, and his mane is not as lush, not as full. It's quite a bit smaller. But you can see this beautiful male has a lot of scarring on the face. The youngster has definitely seen something. She's sitting up now. I wonder what she's hearing. She's actually now watching her brother move. He's moving back over. He's lost interest in the back of the car. So in this little pride, we have this youngster and his sister, who are around 8 months old now. The Ross male, who's the father, 2 older lionesses of the Birmingham Pride, and 2 sub-adult lionesses. So they're not quite 3 years old yet, but they will be soon. And they're actually in quite a big clearing at the moment. There have been a lot of other animals around. Actually, on the way here, we spotted quite a lot of impala, wildebeest, zebra, and we really weren't expecting to find them because they're literally 50 meters away. Oh, you can see she's got very yellow teeth. So this is one of the oldest lionesses in the Birmingham Pride. She's very well experienced. Trying to groom herself. And a scratch. I wonder if she's maybe got a tick that's biting her there. You can see one of the other sub-adults coming over to investigate what she's doing. Wow. You can see that difference in body size between the lioness that's lying down and the sub-adult that's now standing up. Sub-adult is still much more lean. She's got an overall smaller body size, and her neck is a lot thinner. But the lions and lionesses in this pride are incredibly large, so I'd be very interested to see how big that sub-adult lioness gets. She's actually contact calling. Chris, so lions will have a mating season, not strictly like you would have with things like impalas that mate particularly in May, but they do try and cycle up their estrus cycles with each other. So the lionesses will try and come into estrus at a similar time, and that's in the beginning of the year because they like to give birth in, which is different to all of the herbivores that usually give birth in spring or summer. And so they like to give birth usually around May, and their gestation is only around 90, just over 3 months. That one's got a tick on its eyebrow. And so what they like to do is if all of them come into cycle at the same time, what it means is lions are one of the few animals that the lionesses will actually let other lionesses' cubs suckle. They'll let them have their milk, which is very unusual because not a lot of other animals will do that in the world. And that's that pride mentality, the mentality of the pride works together and everyone looks out for each other. So when they all have cubs at a similar time, it means there's more chance of those cubs surviving, and they can all help each other raise the cubs. So usually we would see them mating now within the next 2 or 3 months. But that being said, some lionesses have completely different cycles. We've got a lioness that has just given birth in this pride. We know she has a den site. And those little cubs, the two very... We've got another one in this pride that is actually still heavily pregnant, and another one that we think is pregnant. So sometimes they don't actually stick to giving birth in winter. It just depends on the body's natural cycle. A lot of the time what would happen is their cycle might change. If a new lion comes into the pride and takes over and he kills the cubs that are already here, those lionesses will come into estrus very quickly again to try and have cubs with a new male. And so that will change the yearly cycle as well.
When on safari.
Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at and Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist Craig Sholto Douglas at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, and Beyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The and Beyond Pinder conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
I'm absolutely delighted to have won the February prize draw for 3 nights for 6 people at the Djuma Private Game Reserve. I absolutely love everything Wild Earth has to offer. I find the guides extremely knowledgeable and will go above and beyond to ensure a great safari experience. I will be taking my husband and family from the UK to experience this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. One of the main reasons I joined the Wild Earth Explorer program was for the fireside chats and also to win an incredible prize, which I'm so fortunate to win and incredibly happy. I would like to thank Wild Earth for this amazing prize and cannot wait to meet the team.
I'm Nikki here at and Beyond Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Still hanging out with Kalamba, and she's gone exactly where I thought she would go. And earlier we were talking about branches on this tree that looked like they were going to be comfortable for her to lie on. And I was saying there's a nice big straight branch, and sure enough, that's exactly where she's gone to lay. You can see that's a lot more comfortable for her in many respects. It's a lot flatter, which means her head's not at awkward angles, and she can kind of sprawl out with all feet down and tail down and just generally lounge very leopard-like in her tree. She makes me laugh though, because she's no longer using her foot as a pillow. She's just kind of hanging her head down. She almost looks as though if that left foot were to fall, as though she would be dead, because she's kind of so draped over this branch. But she's very much just taking it easy. She's been a bit like up and down. She kind of hasn't found the perfect spot yet. She has moved and then sort of repositioned and then repositioned again and then repositioned again. So I think she's just trying to find exactly where to sit. It amazes me though with this particular cat how well she took to life as an adult on her own. I mean, she was obviously with Tundi for a while and learnt a lot of things from there, but she kind of got left fairly early on. It wasn't very early, but early enough. And she took to being an adult kind of leopard that's self-sufficient very quickly. And since then, I don't think I can recall a sighting of Kalamba where I thought, sure, this cat really is in need of a meal. She always looks well-fed, and always looks as though she's managing to successfully find what she needs in order to survive. She really Even now, today, you can see that there's a kind of bulge on the side of that belly there. It's always got something. And it's because she's very active in hunting. She's not like a lot of leopards that kind of will go on scent marking missions on roads, and that's what they're doing. She walks through blocks. She's very much proactive in chasing multiple things, and even if she misses, it doesn't mean that she's not eventually going to catch something. So she goes after lots of scrub hares and duikers, and even though, it doesn't sound like a lot to have a scrub hare, she kills 3-4 scrub hares a week. That's sustaining her much better than one impala every sort of 10 days, so she's able to constantly just keep food coming in, which has led to her being a pretty well-built, healthy cat. She's quite muscular. That's one thing about Kalamba. She's quite a stocky little cat. I suppose she would have got that from her dad. He's not exactly small himself, but she's really has developed well, and I mean, we see her more with kills than I think any of the leopards. I know we see, obviously, Sibui and the cubs a lot more at the moment, and she's pretty good as well. But if we think about on Djuma itself, if we had to rule out all the other properties that we traverse on, I reckon it must be Kalamba mostly that is kind of producing the most kills at this stage, and that's the ones we see. We know also that we have vast majority of the time we don't actually spend with Kalamba. If you had to work out a percentage of her life and how much we've actually been with her, it's a very minuscule percentage. It's not like Hosana, at one stage Hosana we were spending a very high percentage of time with him. She's been a lot more elusive over the months, and her kind of tracks, once you lose sort of idea of where she's been, it becomes very difficult to keep up with where she is and to find her. Like I say, she does cover lots of ground, but once you have a rough idea of the areas she's moving, then keeping tabs on her becomes a lot easier. You can see already, since the day where we found her, she's been found not 2 days ago, yesterday and today, and that's all because it's roughly now we know where she's kind of been. So she's been this sort of western corridor going up into Buffelshoek, and everybody's now checking those areas more frequently and then picking up her tracks. The other thing is that we've had a nice week of dry weather, which means that the roads themselves have started to soften again, and tracks are starting to become a lot clearer than what they were a week ago. Whenever you get rain, you get this crust that forms, and until the cars and elephants and buffalo and break that crust down and soften that sand, seeing trucks on roads can be very difficult. I was actually talking about this with Steve this morning. We were chatting about how tracking lions after tracking leopards is such a much easier experience in many ways, because especially these big prides that we have here, so many footprints and so big, you see them kind of nice and easy. But the other day when Steve tracked the Talamatis and they crossed the whole of Djuma, I afterwards was just bumbling around doing my own thing, and the amount of places where I drove where they had walked and the tracks were very difficult to see, and that goes for that's over 50 tracks of lions that you're not even seeing on the road because of how hard they were after the rain. So once cars have driven and things have broken down, it becomes a lot easier to find these cats. And so that's probably why we're also having a little bit more success with Kalamba. Prior to that, we just weren't picking up her tracks, even though she maybe was still moving around in this area. But I'm super keen to see where she dens. Like I have kind of constant thoughts about it. I'm hoping and crossing fingers that she doesn't den in two spots. So one spot is kind of a drainage line that's running very close to Hardekwil. And the reason why I don't want it to den there is because we unfortunately won't be able to broadcast from there. It's in a little dip and signal is non-existent. So that's a bit of a selfish reason. It's not because it's not a nice den site, but it's just because we wouldn't be able to get there. The other reason is, the other drainage lines are the ones north of Gallagher. If she gets in there, the chance of us finding her or viewing her is going to be almost zero in those drainage lines. So what I'm hoping is that because she was a little cub and she was put in these areas, and her movements tend to suggest that she's trying to secure 3 drainage lines at the moment on Djuma. So where she walks is very strategic. She walks the Mulawati, which we know she was kept in as a cub, and she's often close to the den site that she was raised in for quite a long time. She's protecting the drainage line that runs east-west from the Mulawati, called off Ingwe Alley. Again, she was put in that drainage line as a very small cub multiple times, and it seems like she's trying to get and secure this drainage line that's running north-south from the Ingwe Alley drainage line that goes up onto Quarantine. And again, she was kept there as a cub. So it's fascinating to me to watch how she's kind of pushed and has scent marked and has moved to try cover all the drainage lines that she was put in as a cub. So she's got the Mulawati for a certain section, which is the one where she was. She's got Ingwe Alley, she's got this one now on the western side of Quarantine, and then she's got Gallagher, shortcut drainage lines, and then that one on Buffels Hook. So she's got nice options for den sites, but hopefully she chooses the ones in the Mulawati, because those ones are not only beautiful den sites, but they will be the easiest for us in terms of trying to find her and locate her on a regular basis once she does have cubs. And the last thing we want is for her to have cubs in a place where no one can find her, because then the cubs are very skittish and it becomes a really tricky thing to kind of habituate them. But just on leopards in general, I mean, we're talking den sites, but their camouflage is often a thing that comes up. There's something here that's camouflaging so well. Just to the right of me, there is a tiny little tree with a leaf, and I was just watching the leaf now because the wind is just starting to pick up, which is to be expected because of this cyclone that's approaching. But there's a little tiny leaf, and on that leaf is a grasshopper that is so well camouflaged, but for this leaf specifically. So if you look on the left side, this leaf over here, there will be a little grasshopper that's sitting there. You can just make it out. It almost looks like it's part of the leaf itself. And the reason why I say it's perfectly suited to this plant is when this plant is growing, this little bush willow, its new leaves often have a slight reddish tinge to them. And if you look at this grasshopper, it's actually got sort of little kind of creamy red markings on the fringes of its body, and that actually blends in super well with these leaves, and it becomes near impossible to see it. It's only when the wind blew and the shine of the leaf changed and didn't shine where it's standing can you see that there's actually a grasshopper there. Now, the reason why this tree actually has those leaves that are that coloration, so that red and kind of almost dead looking new leaf, is because the tree is trying to fool potential predators of it. So things like kudu, nyala, bushback, these kinds of things. If the tree was bright green and had tiny little beautiful green leaves, they're going to target it. But if the leaves look as though they've been burnt and are not really very good quality, then often you'll find the antelope don't feed off those particular trees. So you see it a lot in trees that are heavily eaten. Bush willows and terminalias do it a lot too, where the leaf as a starting out point actually looks more dead than alive, and then as it gets to the point where it's nice and big, then it greens up completely and has no longer got that reddish tinge to it, which is pretty cool. Kalamba, you look like somebody has injected you with a tranquilizer. You're so passed out. She makes me laugh, this cat. She's another story altogether. Completely out cold. Vita, so cats never are fast asleep. They're always aware of their environment, and so while she's probably going to be as asleep as a cat would be on the ground, she's still very much aware that things can happen at any time. So lions can arrive here, hyena, other leopard, prey animal that she can hunt. So they constantly are able to process stimulus even when asleep. So if the slightest sound that sounds like something that she needs to be aware of, she'll pop her head up immediately and look around. They don't sleep like we do, where we kind of pass out and people sleep through all kinds of noises. For them, that's is just going to lead to either being killed or missed opportunities from a food point of view.
So you'll find that even though they're deep sleeping in a tree, they're still very much aware of their surroundings. And yes, she will deep sleep in this tree in terms of a quality sleep just as much as she would on the ground. And we found her the other day. She was in a tree and she must have been there for a good portion of the day, and she was fast asleep. So they do like to sleep up in trees, and it's particular to this time of the year. I mean, I can't remember the last time we've had so many leopards in trees without kills in the space of a week. I think it must be even, in fact, I don't think ever at Djuma I've had this many cats up trees without kills. So, it's been a lot of cats that are using trees to sleep rather than lying in the grass with all the ticks at the moment. It's, I think, a very good way to manage your tick load.
If you just look at that lion, you can tell that something is up by his body language, and that's because there are impala, sorry, I'm going to try it up, and zebra quite far away from him still, you can see. So he's keen, but he has got a huge gap, a massive open area as his biggest hurdle this morning. Whether or not he's going to be able to creep down low enough and strategically use all these fallen trees, it's going to be quite challenging. Otherwise, he's literally going to have to leopard crawl, because we don't have that lovely tall grass now. We're back on zebra clearing, and this entire area is filled with this weird little shrub-like thing. I don't even know what it is, but it's a terrible plant. And he's going to have to drop down nice and low. So he's just staring at the moment. I don't know where the other lion has... Oh, there he is. Never mind. I know where the other lion is. He's just to the right and behind him. I don't know if you can see him, Kat. Also standing here, you get a very nice view of how big his mane is. There we go. Right, boys. The lion on the right might be a little bit older than this one on the left. Maybe just. Sometimes that happens. They don't necessarily have to be from the same mother to form a coalition. It might be just from the same pride. Kayla, lion's vision is very good. It's one of their best sort of senses, but their eyes are designed very differently to ours, like our eyes. Their eyes are designed to pick up movement. So obviously we see all these different animals and they've got these beautiful markings on them. Those types of markings have various names. For example, a zebra has got beautiful disruptive markings. Some things like kudus as well, and nyala. They've got all these different kinds of markings that break up the solid silhouette of their body. So when they stand very still against a tree line, they can be virtually invisible. But as soon as they move, any movement, the twitch of a nose, the twitch of an ear, swish of a tail, something like a lion or any of the other predators will be able to pick that up very, very quickly. Their vision at night time is far better than ours. I think it's about 8 times better than ours at night. But yeah, it's just really unbelievable. There's also elephants, which we can't see right now, but I suspect that they're going to pop out onto zebra clearings too, which will be epic. It will be interesting to see what happens then. Now, Gert was just telling me just before we went live that he saw this male last week. He said that scar on the nose is definitely the same one. So they've been around here for maybe not last week, but 10 days ago, hey? A bit long, yeah, 10 days ago. And so they have been around here, which is quite cool, just laying low. So they quite possibly have been into the corners of the reserve that we don't normally drive. I think that lion has now also spotted the elephants in the distance. You can see he's not focusing on the zebra and impala anymore. So now they need to weigh up the decisions. Are we going to stay here and try and hunt and just lay low? Are we going to move out of the way? Or I would just sit, if I was a lion, I'd just kind of sit, maybe huddled up against a shrub. I don't think you can see the elephants now, but they are right there. Between those two trees, yeah, there we go. There's one elephant. Can you see it? Just creeping out of the tree line. I think it's a breeding herd that are in there. But you can see it's not long before they're going to pop out. Not uncommon common to see so many different animals. Okay, the boys are on the move again. They are just sticking to the longer grass. They might even just lay down. There's one. Hello, boy. So that's a nice ID feature, right? That scar might eventually heal and disappear. I don't know how deep it is. That's the thing with scars. They don't always last forever. It depends on the depth of the wound. Looks like a big cut, maybe. Him and his coalition partner just got into a bit of a box over a carcass. It'd be quite easy for them to catch lots of impala lambs, but they need about 3 impala lambs each. Errol, yes, the elephants would most certainly chase the lions, 100%. Even though the lions in this area don't typically hunt elephants. I'm not talking about like a 5.5 ton, 6 ton elephant bull, but there's some prides of lions that have learned how to hunt elephants, which is very, very cool. These lions, however, are not going to hunt an elephant. I'm almost certain of that. I'll be very surprised if they do. They're more likely to go for something like an impala, a zebra, a wildebeest, a buffalo, something along those lines, waterbuck, kudu, you name it. The other prey species that we have here. Taking on Africa's giant is quite something, and experience definitely needs to be had, and you also need to be, I suppose, part of a super pride, because one lion on its own is really not, it's like a mosquito to a fully grown elephant. But elephants will chase all the predators. We watched a herd of elephants chase wild dogs, and it almost looked like the elephants were hunting the wild dogs. They had their trunks on the ground, and they were trying to sniff them out and chase them even further. So it was very entertaining. So he's still quite keen. I think what he's going to try and do is maybe go around, back onto the road a little bit further east, and then try and head to the southern section of them, so just to the left of where the zebra were, and come in from that tree line, because the zebras aren't quite in the middle of the clearing. So I think he's really just weighing up his options. It would make sense if he goes up that way because he's got more cover. The wind is swirling at the moment. I'm just trying to feel while I'm in the vehicle. We're downwind of the zebra right now, so it would be better if he comes around to where we are as the lion, and then he's got the protection of the wind as well. Obviously, hiding your scent is the most important, but there is an impala that is looking that way. I think she's caught sight of this youngster. You can see she's standing right up. She's got her head pointed in a direction, ears are fixed and focused. I think she knows it's there. I think she's not quite sure just yet. Even look at her posture. Now she's starting to stiffen up. So if he is like sort of happy that she's spotted a predator, 100% she'll probably start alarming. She'll start snorting, and then everyone around here will be alerted. So that lion needs to make sure that he doesn't make a move now, that he stands dead still. He might have to stay dead still for quite some time, and then hope that she just pops her head back down and starts feeding again. But you can see she hasn't alarmed anyone else just yet. There's another impala. Gone. What are you looking at? Now everybody's looking around. Zebra are very vigilant as well. They've got phenomenal eyesight. They're looking the other way. But it would be a great meal if they could bring down a zebra. It would be quite interesting because there's a hyena den that's not too far away from here. Sure, it's been a long time since I've last seen lions on a big kill. And Gert, those elephants that are coming straight towards us now in the distance at 12 o'clock, it is the same herd of elephants that I was just telling you about that chase the wild dogs. And that cow there in front with no tusks, this is a really big herd of elephants. She was the one that was actually leading the sort of charge and sniffing out the dogs and chasing them further, because she chased them for ages. I mean, the dogs ran away from them. Sorry, when I say dogs, I'm talking about the wild dogs, in case you've only just jumped onto the show now. So it will be quite interesting to see how this all plays out. Are they going to stick to the tree line? Are they going to come out into the open? Who knows? But luckily the lions are also downwind of the elephants, so I don't think that for the most part, I don't think that the elephants are going to pick up on their scent. So now it's only going to be if the elephants spot the lions. Yeah, so that's not too bad, but they rely more on their sense of smell. And with the lion standing dead still like that, I don't think the Ellies will see those lions. I think one is just laying down. But there's not much action here right now. Like I said, that male lion has got a huge distance, or both of them a massive distance to cover before they even get anywhere close to those zebra and impala, and the elephants actually look like they're going to just stick to the tree line. There's just an aeroplane going over now. Just sit here for a bit and see how this all plays out. Sometimes these things can take hours, or sometimes they happen quite quickly, but off we go across. Steve has finally managed to get into the wild dog sighting.
Good morning, and welcome to the hounds on Chitwa Airstrip, and a cheeky hyena that has probably been pushed into the bushes here. Can you see the hyena just on the right there? There's a hyena. It's on its own. I don't know who it is. There's a whole pack of wild dogs in front of it. So we're going to try and edge forward so we can get you a better view of these dogs. We don't have too much time, everybody, because as you can imagine, wild dogs being found is often generates a lot of excitement. Oh, there's a whole lot of hyenas. Looks like there's a standoff. I'm just going to turn over to the side here so we can give you some space. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hyenas in total. And dogs we're going to count. 15 dogs. Aren't they pretty? There's some impala alarm calling in the distance. Other side of the airstrip. Might work out for us quite nicely because we just come in. There's space for one. And if this other gentleman leaves, the other person will come in, and that means there's 3 of us. There's no one else waiting to come in, so it could be beneficial for us. Okay, so this individual in front of me has got a collar directly in front of me. So here in front of me at 1 o'clock, there's another vehicle. We're right here at the airstrip hangar. Now, I'm sure someone will be able to tell us who this pack is. I don't know if I know them, if they are the Pungwe pack. The Pungwe 15, I think they are. But I don't know. Ah, thank you, James. James is on it. Okay. Dogs are on the move. Okay, this is going to happen. The female, that looks like a male, it's just gotten up. And the doggies are going to move, and well, we are going to try and follow them when they do move. It is often a very quick affair when they start to move, and the hyenas are going, go get us some breakfast, dogs. 6 hyenas versus 15 dogs. Look at the attention. We saw the lions hunting yesterday, and their attention was focused and stealthy. Dogs will also be quite stealthy for a period of time before they launch off into a very fast run, which is often happens. Oh no, you're going to go behind me, are you? Look at this. Hello, doggies. Come and walk past me and say hello. Oh, I love these guys. Love them to bits. Hello. Are you interested in my car, are you? Now let's see if they're going to give that hyena a hard time behind us there. Okay, here comes it. Old Scraggletooth over here is about to walk past. She's looking quite full. Maybe she's got more puppies on the way. She's a very characteristic feature.
On the 27th of April, Wild Earth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what Wild Earth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. We are offering a 20% discount on all books bought before the end of March. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
It's the month of March and Wild Earth is offering you the chance to win a brand new prize. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and you could win a 5-day eco-training ranger experience for 2. Eco-training is the pioneer and leader in safari guide and wildlife training in Africa. The lucky winners can look forward to approaching dangerous game on foot, tracking and 4x4 driving, learning about animal behavior, and even spending one night sleeping out under a blanket of stars. In addition, you will also get the exclusive opportunity to join the Wild Earth team on the broadcasting vehicle. Sign up to be an explorer now, and it could be you that wins this life-changing experience. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross, and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
We've managed to somehow scrounge out a view of these cats in amongst the undergrowth. We came around to another little road that's on the eastern side, as I was saying, of the drainage line, and we've managed to somehow, like I say, get a view of some spots through the thicket. I'm hoping that they're going to move a little bit and we'll get them kind of a little bit more out in the open than what they are at the moment, given that it's pretty much just spots behind some leaves for now. With the cub being as vociferous as he has been this morning and moving about, I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, we're going to see him irritate Mom enough for them to move and for us to be able to get a decent view of them. If we had the river that we could drive, I mean, we would have a 5-5 view of these guys, but unfortunately they're lying between the river and the thickets, and the river itself is still flowing, and so that will just be a suicide mission for Rusty. Poor Rusty would be up to its axle in soft sand if we drove in there now, which we're not going to do at all. We're going to rather stay on the bank, and we'll have kind of blurred spots for now. Not blurred spots, but obstructed spots for now. Eventually, I'm sure these two will move and come out. I think they're going to rest here for the day. I don't think we're going to see them move too far from this area. There's water, there's ample shade, it's getting hot, their tummies are fairly full, and so I expect that both of these guys will stay here. That's the cub that you're seeing now, I think. I mean, I'm battling to see on my screen because of the glare, but it looks like maybe that's the cub. Mom was also down here with the cub. They were both together at one point, so I'm pretty sure she's just lying up. I was hoping they were going to go lie down in the riverbed. There's actually a sandbank that's developed that you can see from the road, and it looks like this beautiful cold sand, so I would have thought that they might go lie there, but maybe it's just a little bit too damp still, and when they actually stand there, maybe the water seeps up through the sand. You know, sometimes sand can look like it's okay, and then when you stand there, it's this kind of slow rise of water as the sand is displaced, and maybe that's what's happening at the moment. And that's why they're not actually sitting in the sand itself, but rather on the bank of the Mulawanini. But you can see now how everything out here is a game of chance and luck. And you'll find that with these guys, I mean, if you look at this sighting now, if you drove here, the chance of you seeing this would be near zero. I mean, that's very zoomed in view of this leopard. If you come out, its spotted pattern is blending in better than you can imagine in those shadows. You're finding that you've got, you know, kind of that lighter color with those black spots, and how that blends in with the environment and with the area is really makes them tricky to see. And it's why we've been struggling a little bit in finding them. You've got to just right time, right place, and we got lucky that they were out in the open and we could spot them from quite far a little bit earlier. Otherwise probably wouldn't even have the sighting, and that's a 5-minute difference that we're talking about. Tyler, do leopards mark their territory? Yes, they mark their territory. These cats basically will walk along, lift their tail, and they'll urinate, particularly on the sides of roads and game paths, and that's a chemical signature that they're leaving behind for other animals to know that they're there. On top of that, you then have defecation marks, so they'll defecate, which is, you know, poo basically on pathways or roads as well, again leaving a scent trail. And then the other way that they mark territory is by audio. So they will call, they'll have a rasping, sawing sound, and that call will indicate to other leopards that there's a territorial individual in the area. So a few ways that they do it. And also, I suppose, they rub their face on bushes too. That's also a chemical signature that's left behind. You can hear there's a little, I think it's a little long-billed crombeck that's alarm calling at this guy at the moment. It's not happy that there's two leopards sitting here, I don't think. It's pretty upset, but hey, look at that camouflage. Isn't that amazing? I always think it's incredible to see how well camouflaged these guys are. This little piggy, so males are basically double the size of females when they're fully grown. Most female leopards that we see in this area are going to weigh around 40 to 50 kilograms or around 100 pounds. That's roughly where the females sit. Whereas the males, they can get as much as 95, 97 kilograms, over 100 sometimes. So they pretty much double what the females are in weight. In terms of actual size and measurements of their bodies, they will be considerably larger. I would say at least 40% larger. In terms of their sort of height, head size, length, they're much bigger animals in general. So you can see with this little one, he's already the same size as mom, and he's not even a year old yet. So he's still got lots of growing to do, but yet he's almost the same size as her in her adult form. They really do get a lot bigger. Their size is quite something when you actually see them there's fully grown big adults next to females. It's very difficult to give people a sense of size until you actually see the differences between them. I remember the one day I actually had Anderson, and yes, Anderson was one of those kind of 1%ers, if you want to call it that. It was this leopard that was able to grow much larger than some of the other leopards in the area. And I had him mating with Moya once, which is a female from the southwest. And he was sitting down in the drainage line, and she was walking past him. And the top of his head when he was sitting was the same height as her walking. So that gives you an idea just how much bigger he was than her. It looked actually weird. It looked like this monster next to this tiny little female, and even when they mated, he kind of just dwarfed her in so many ways. So the males are a lot bigger, and the kind of bulk of them is also quite something. So we have that to look forward to with this little fella. I think he's going to be a big boy. He's got nice big feet. His tracks are already way bigger than his mom's. You can tell them quite clearly apart already. His is a much bigger, rounder track than what she's got. And even Kuchava, his track, her little son, his track is also nice and big already. So big feet, big ears, often they grow into it. We think that he is from the Mulawati lineage, which is not a small leopard either. I haven't spent a lot of time with Mulawati, but I have seen him enough to know that he's not tiny. He's a fairly decent sized individual, and so he will have passed on some good genetics. And Tandi always produces beautiful boys, very stocky often in her lineage. So I'm sure he will be an absolute showstopper. He's already relaxed a lot more, so wherever he goes, they're going to inherit a really good leopard. I really don't think we're going to see, these young boys spending much time in the areas that we traverse. They might distribute into somewhere where we see them a little bit more, but chances are that they're going to, by the time they reach sort of 2.5, 3.5, I think we're going to see them moving on. Thankfully, that's only, in a year and a bit's time for pretty much all of our young boys that are around at the moment. Sibui's little male, and this one and Kuchava, they all kind of got a fair amount of time left still in the area. I'm hoping one of the young boys ends up coming onto Djuma. Nice when we have one close to camp. Becky, so the most that I know of is 4, but on average 2. The most I've ever seen myself with a leopard is 3. So I've seen photos of leopards with 4 in the wild. So we're not talking about any sort of captivity or breeding program, because sometimes that can be influenced by hormones and all kinds of things. But 4 in the wild is the most that I've ever seen photographic evidence of. But firsthand, 3. I think there was a report, actually, I might, hang on a second. I remember having a conversation with somebody at the end of, was it last year or middle of last year, where they said that they had photos of a leopardess with 5. But I don't think I saw those photos. I can't remember now, actually. But I've definitely seen of 4, which is amazing. Imagine that poor leopardess to have to raise 4 cubs. It must be an absolute nightmare. Also, from a food point of view, it would be, if she has 4 boys, just can you imagine there's 4 males? And by the time they reach a year old, she's basically feeding 4 adult female leopards, which is a serious amount of food. It is no joke to find that much food, and that would just become near impossible, I think. It's why we often find that leopards litters of that size don't really do well. I haven't seen a female raise more than two independents in quite a while. It does happen, but it's been a while since I've seen it, and personally haven't actually seen it happen at all, where all 3 have made it to independence. I'm hoping when Tlalamba has her little ones that maybe we can get a little 3 prize from Tlalamba. That'll be nice. But I reckon her first litter is only going to be 1. I have this feeling. Maybe it'll be 2, I don't know. But I'm going to hedge my bet on just 1 to start with. But I think she's going to be a good mom. I think Kalumba's going to be just like her mom. She's going to be sneaky. She's going to understand the value of keeping her cub hidden. She's going to be able to figure out a way to move him around or her around. I think she's going to do really well. And she's laying some really good foundation work at the moment, is little Kalumba. She has moved her way around all over the place. She's sent marks everywhere. She's definitely carved out a beautiful little territory for herself that seemingly no other leopards are even rivaling or challenging her with. And that's why, I think she'll be successful. We get distribution of leopards and new males arrive and we end up with a different kind of situation. So there's a lot going to ride on that side of things for her to raise cubs successfully, but I think she's got all the tricks of the trade, and the way that she is able to be elusive towards vehicles when she wants to be will stand her in good stead with being elusive with her cubs when she needs to be. So I think she's going to be just fine. I think she has been sort of learned well from mom, which is going to only be good for us in the future.
Welcome back to Ngala, and I've actually noticed that this zebra that we can see in front, now that we found the rest of the dazzle from that other male, has actually got quite a chunk that's been taken out of its rump. And we can kind of see it just in the shape, but as it turns there, you can see there's actually a hollow in the rump, and as it turns, you can actually see a bit of the scarring where it's come out. It also seems to have lost a little bit of its tail, which means that maybe there was a bit of a fight between zebras, but I think what might have happened was maybe a lion didn't quite get as lucky as it thought, but still got a chunk of this zebra when it was maybe a bit younger. But it's actually quite unusual to see such an obvious difference in the tail especially. So you can almost see how the back right, the one closest to us, that cheek or the rump, has got a hollow out of it. There you can see it very well in that light. Almost looks like a perfect bite mark. Nola, zebras will groom themselves using a few different methods. Sometimes they might groom and scratch each other, which is called allo grooming. But they will also do dust bathing, where they find a nice patch of sand that's loose and they roll in it to clean their coats and get rid of all the pests. And they actually do also scratch themselves on trees. They might occasionally use their teeth or their mouths to scratch pests and insects off. And so it really does just depend. They also use the rain, but it just depends zebra to zebra where they are in the habitat that they're in at the time. But zebras are actually quite social, and so you might find that they would groom each other. What's also unusual about this dazzle, it seems to be about 6 zebras together that were hiding out of the road while we had that male in the road. It seems like half are male and half are female. And that's quite unusual because normally there's only one stallion within a dazzle of zebras and the rest of them would get moved out. But what you might find happened here is because there's so few of them, they've decided to stay together. They might have a dominance issue when it comes closer to mating time. But it is definitely unusual. Definitely unusual to see 3 males and 3 females. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these zebras to enjoy that beautiful fresh green grass this morning, and I'll send you from my stripes over to Tristan, who's finally found his spots.
There we go, sitting on the rock, which is what